Today's Old Testament lesson, we hear the author of this part of Isaiah lament with the people. He cried to God to come and offer comfort and reassuring hope. And our writer has a vision. And in that vision, he sees hope revealed and realized. God's promise is that change is coming. Truly, one day, the people of Israel will be able to go back to their home of their ancestors. Indeed, the promise of comfort wasn't about staying put and just hanging out. The words of comfort were all about turning lives around and finding the strength to change and live as a people transformed by God's grace. And change is the promise the exiled people heard, and change was the promise John the Baptist offered all those who listened to him as he preached on the banks of the Jordan River. We've heard a lot about John the Baptist. We know that he wore animal skins and ate bugs for lunch. There was no mac and cheese for him. I think most of us have a mental image of John as some kind of weird, rough guy who preached long and loud about repenting and getting lives back in order. John managed to attract a lot of attention wherever he went. But it wasn't just his appearance that stopped folks in their tracks. It was the message John preached that drew folks in. Change is coming, John preached over and over. Change is coming soon, sooner than we may expect, and we need to be ready. Now that might not seem very comforting to us, and to the people who listened to John, the promise of changing times was a comfort to hear. Like their ancestors, these people too were living without freedom. Their land was occupied by the Romans, and their days were hard and difficult. So when the wild man John came to the banks of the Jordan River, people noticed. They wanted to hear the comforting words that promised them change. As John spoke to these encouraging words, he also pleaded them to prepare themselves for the renewing promise that would soon burst forth in their world. John's words weren't meant to threaten or frighten people to change. They were words of welcome, words that offered an opportunity to meet God and be welcomed into God's realm. John preached words of comfort and assurance that God is with us, even when it seems as though God is nowhere to be found. During the season of Advent, we're invited to listen again to the words of Isaiah and John, welcoming us to come and meet God. Advent is a gift of time that's given to us so that we can be ready for the change that is about to break into our lives. Now, as we continue our preparations for the celebration of Christ's birth, we should be thinking about the changes we need to make. Perhaps if you find yourself out and about these days, maybe even venturing out to do some shopping, we should think about what it would mean if we actually allowed Christ to comfort and sustain us every day. How would our lives change if we welcomed Christ as our guide and example for our daily activities? What would be different? Today's Advent story was written by Rhonda Van Dyke Colby, who's a United Methodist pastor in Virginia. This is a story about what can happen at a local Walmart. She writes, I always wanted to meet John the Baptist, the desert man who lived on locusts and honey, who announced that Jesus was coming and that people had better get ready. Well, she said, I got the chance. I met John the Baptist the other day at Walmart. It seemed that the usual fellow who stood outside the store who carried a sign that read, I'll work for food, wasn't there the day Rhonda met John. Indeed, someone else was standing in that man's place. The man who stood there was just as disheveled, but also much wilder in the eyes. And the sign he held was made from a piece of torn cardboard. It read, "It's time for a change." Rhonda continues, "I passed within 2 feet of him as I turned into the parking lot. He caught my eye for a moment and held my gaze as I made the turn, almost causing a minivan pileup. But," she said, "once she got into the store, she forgot about it. She got her cart and began the mad dash through the store for all the essentials. More clear bulbs for the window candles, a few more extension cords, and Christmas patterned paper towels. Then she ventured forth to the checkout line. While waiting for her turn, she scratched off a couple items on her to-do list. Before packing up her bags, her friend remembered to reach into her wallet for some change. It seemed she had a personal holiday policy of never passing a Salvation Army kettle without putting something in. She wondered at the time whether that policy was really one of generosity, or if it simply helped her avoid the guilt she felt whenever she passed by the kettle. As Rhonda picked up her packages and rushed through the automatic door, she held on to her fistful of pennies, ready to drop them into the black kettle as soon as she heard the sound of the ringing bell. But this time there was no kettle, only John the Baptist ringing the bell and still holding his sign, "It's time for change." Rhonda approached John. She remarked, "If it's change you want, I've got some right here in my hand." John was not amused. "Are you prepared?" John asked with intimidating intensity. "Well, not yet. That's what all these packages are about. I've got a lot of decorating to do, and my husband and I still have our annual open house, and I haven't even started to bake. It's more than a little bit overwhelming, so I've started a list of things I simply must do to be prepared." John replied, "Let me help you. I'll help you take your packages to your car. Then I'll buy you a cup of coffee." "Wait a minute," Rhonda said. "You are the one standing out in the cold with the sign. I thought I was supposed to buy you the coffee." According to Rhonda, John didn't say a word. He just tucked the sign under his arm and took some of her packages and carried them to her car. She remembers that when she opened the car door, John spotted one of her most prized possessions, her daily planner. John said, "Better bring that with you." And so the two of them, along with the planner, headed back to Walmart. So there at the Walmart snack bar, over a cup of coffee, John began to leaf through Rhonda's life, through lists and schedules. She said that most of the time he just shook his head. Once in a while, he mumbled something under his breath. Rhonda says she felt like a schoolgirl watching a teacher grade a test, realizing that she didn't have any answer correct. Suddenly, John brightened up. "Okay, here's something I like. Get rid of the clutter, clear a path," John said. "Tell me about that." So Rhonda explained that since moving several months earlier, the floor of her study was covered with unpacked boxes. Most of them had important Christmas items inside. So she needed to sort through them and take out the Santa placemats, the nativity scenes, and to clear a path in her study. John's shoulders fell in disappointment, and he returned to reviewing the planner. Then he reached into one of his pockets and pulled out a small stub of a pencil, and he began to write a new list. At the top of the page, he wrote, "Do list. Number 1, hold a baby." Strange, thought Rhonda. But before she could say anything, she heard a woman cry out. Her toddler had somehow managed to climb up a display in order to get a closer look at a stuffed tickle-me something or other. The display began to teeter, and so without a word between the two women, Rhonda found herself holding the woman's newborn child as the mother ran after her toddler. Rhonda said. I looked down at the bundle she had placed in my arms. He's so tiny, so fragile. He reached for my face with his small, delicate hand. The song coming through the Walmart sound system was, "What child is this?" For a moment, Rhonda writes, she wasn't in Walmart, she was in Bethlehem. She was holding close to her the body of the one whose body would be broken for her and for us all. All too soon, Rhonda heard the announcement of a blue light special, and the moment was gone. The mother had returned for her baby. Rhonda glanced around, John was gone, and the planner was open to the page that contained the list. And she saw number 2. Wonder, it said. Wonder? Wonder what? Wonder why God chose a helpless little baby to bring salvation into a hostile world. Wonder why after thousands of years we still haven't got the message. Rhonda said she wondered. And then she wondered what to wonder. After those moments of wondering, Rhonda looked down at her planner again. This time she saw item 3 on the list. It said, look to the stars, whatever that meant. Rhonda walked outside, and as she did, she looked up at the sky. It was full of stars, thousands. They were more beautiful than the lights on any Christmas tree. And the good news was that Rhonda didn't have to do anything to put them there. There wasn't any untangling to do, no extension cords to worry about, nothing to plug into an overloaded socket. Those stars were a gift given as a narrative spectacle of wonder. As she gazed up at the sky, Rhonda had a strong sense that she had been looking in the wrong place for Christmas. She had been too busy rushing around to look up. She had been so preoccupied with worrying about all that she had to accomplish that she forgot to appreciate what had already been done for her. And in the sky that night, there was one star, it seemed, that was brighter than all the others. As she walked to her car, it seemed as though that one star led her way. It fell on a sign tucked under one of her windshield wipers. It read, "It's time for a change." Kate Galloway, an English author and theologian, has written this: during Advent, we go with John into the wilderness to prepare the way to welcome Christ into our hearts and lives at Christmas. We have the opportunity to explore the inner geography of our lives, the areas of dead wood, thorns, or tangled knots. Twisted relationships, the dead wood of old hurts and habits, the confusion that sometimes comes when we feel we can't see the wood for the trees. All these are wilderness areas, and they need to be cleared away before growth and new life is possible. Or perhaps there are desert patches, arid, dry areas where nothing can grow or blossom. Parts of us which have almost withered away from not being used or tended or tested. Some tenderness, some care, some talent, some forgiveness, some humor that need the water of life to bring them bursting into flower. So here's the thing. Where is our dead wood? What old hurts and habits do we need to clear away from our lives? How do we begin to water and nurture new growth to spring forth and blossom from the dead undergrowth? So, when you meet John the Baptist in Walmart or Kohl's or Kroger, what will you say? Above all, trust, be comforted, be strengthened and encouraged. There is good news for all of us. In
Jan's in the hospital, and you're sorry for her.
Yeah, I asked, well, let's continue to ask for prayers for Jan, or Jan, as far as I know, is still
I think she's still in on that.
I tried to get in touch with Bob, haven't been able to, but honestly, lift them in our prayers. Anyone else? Carol?
Yes, I hope to lift up the family of Danny Jackson. He was sort of a lay preacher, and I'm working with the family. Especially lift him up in this Christmas season. They're going through a really difficult time. It was a sudden death,
Okay.
and it was from COVID.
And what is his name?
Danny Jackson.
Okay. Any others? Certainly,